Welcome to the most wonderful real estate podcast ever, the show that gives you the lowdown on how to become a successful real estate entrepreneur. With more than 30 years of experience, America's top female real estate investor Dwan is an expert in financial freedom and turning dreams into realities. Now's your chance to become a Dwandonaire with the help of Dwan. Here's to a flaming hot foreclosure market with the help of Dwan. Cheers.
Hey everybody, welcome to another exciting episode of Inside the Minds of Today's Millionaires. I'm your host, Dwan Twyford, America's most sought after real estate investor, and this is the most wonderful real estate podcast ever. So for those of you that listen on the regular, you know the deal, but if you're brand new, our motto here at Dwanderful is people before profits. So if that resonates with you, then you are at the right place. This is your time, and I bring in amazing guests to just teach you all kinds of amazing things and facets of real estate investing. So I have a super exciting guest. I've been waiting so long to have him on my show today. I have Agostino Pentas. And so how are you today?
Dwan, I am awesome. I'm charged up.
Super
excited to be talking to you.
I'm so excited that you're here today. So we start off and we do drinks with Dwan. So we have a toast. And what are you drinking today?
So I have a little bit of tea. That's it.
Oh, I have tea as well. So cheers to you.
Cheers. Cheers.
Everybody listening, take a drink of whatever you're doing. And everybody take a big breath and shake off, whatever you got going on. And clear your head. And open your mind for learning and for having fun and for laughing with us. So this is your time to put all your worries aside, breathe it out, and have some fun. So how are you today, my friend?
I am awesome. I'm awesome. If I were any finer, I'd be granular.
I love that. So we like to start off having you tell us who you are and where you're at right now and how we can get a hold of you. And basically, we want to know what's your deal.
Sure. So who am I? Agostino Pentas. I'm based here in Cleveland. I primarily buy multifamily commercial real estate. I build and develop multifamily commercial real estate, and I also do buy triple net assets as well. And people could find me either on Realty Dynamics websites right there. It's ardyne.com or at bulletproofcashflow.com. We have a great podcast.
Say your website one more time.
Ardyne, RDYNE.
RDYNE.com.
Yeah. And then on Bulletproof Cashflow, we have a great show out there too. And Dwan, you're on there too. And we talk real estate, we talk money raising, we talk all kinds of stuff like that. So to try to help people get into real estate and build success of their own, right? So it's all about.
That is what it's all about. Okay, so everybody, so RDYNE.com, right?
Yep.
And of course, Bulletproof Cashflow, which is a super great podcast. I super enjoyed my time on your show. So thanks for having me on this guest.
Thank you.
It was super fun. So how old are you now?
I'm 50.
50?
Yeah.
Look at you. You're looking awesome for 50. Look at you.
Thank you.
Honestly, I was going to say 40 tops. So good for you. See, it's that sexy bald head. That's it.
That's what it is.
Keeps you looking young and hip. That's exactly what that is. All right. So 50. So, and you're very successful and you do a lot of multifamily and people around the country know who you are. And so when you were like young, like the Agostino that was 10, 11, 12, what were you doing then and where were you?
Well, I tell you what, I was living in Canada, right? That's where I grew up. And I wanted to be an entrepreneur my entire life, right? Since I was a kid.
Even when you were little?
Oh yeah. I wanted to be on my own. I wanted to do my own thing. But you have to be careful what your parents tell you, because my parents, they're immigrants from Italy. And for them, entrepreneurship is something out of reach. Entrepreneurship is scary. Entrepreneurship, it means taking your fate into your own hands, and that sounds dangerous. Instead, they pushed me into getting a job, doing the 40-hour work week. I mean, and again, there's nothing wrong with working if that's what your passion is, working for someone else. I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and but I largely ignored it when I was a kid. I mean, I was instead I buried my head into computers and anything technology. Back in the 80s, it's all I did. It's all around tech, computer programming, all that stuff. That's what I was into. I started writing code, and I was like 9 or 10 years old. I was one of those kids. Yeah. And but instead of, it's funny because I remember sitting in a class once, thinking that I wanted to have my own software company, and instead I went to go work for some other company, and I was totally miserable. I was miserable for decades working for companies.
I know. So when you were little, did you have like part-time jobs? Did you have paper routes? Did you work for other people? Or were you like playing sports? What were you doing?
I never played sports. That's one thing. My brother and sister.
Italy, I would think you played soccer.
I would think, right? But no, I was the big fat kid. I ate a lot of pasta. And I ate a lot of and in my household, we didn't have a lot of money growing up, so it was all about peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and macaroni and cheese. The two worst things you could possibly give a child, day in, day out. This is what I did. Right?
So good though, right?
It was. But my brother and sister were the ones that did the whole soccer thing, where I was all about computers, all about technology. That's all I was obsessed with, was that kind of stuff, right? Even as a child. So where my mother would even drag me to these soccer games, because what else was I going to do? And I would just sit there in the car while my brother and sister were playing, competing in games. Right. So yeah, it was all that. I was the nerd in high school. I didn't have very many friends. I was that kid. That's who I was.
But you know what? The nerds are all the people that when you grow up, everybody works for the nerds.
Yeah, that's right.
So you're probably too young to remember. Do you remember the movie Revenge of the Nerds?
Sure. Yeah. That came out in 1980, or I think it was 80 or 81. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that, I always thought that movie was so funny because, everybody's the big football guys, but really in the bottom line, when it's all said and done, everybody works for the nerds. So right. I don't think being a nerd as a kid is a bad thing.
No. But back then, when you're a kid going through it, when you're, and that's the thing, I didn't have very many friends, right? So it was more of an uphill battle for me. Well, it was back then anyway. And it translated into something a little different when I got older, which was not good, at all. Which I tried to instill into my son what not to do when I was his age, right? And that's a whole other discussion. But
I know when you're a kid, you really just want to fit in and be with the popular group. And I mean, I was a girl. I grew up in the Midwest, and I just wanted to be popular and fit in with the girls, and I didn't want to stand out. But I was 5'10" in high school already, which is really tall, especially high school was like 45 years ago for me. And I had braces. And I was super skinny, and then like these big boobs grew one year, and I was so horrified. I was wearing like baggy shirts and walking like that, trying to never smile and keep my mouth closed, and it was terrible. It was like the worst.
Yeah. And
I flourished.
Yeah, you did. That you did. And but one thing my parents never told me, because either they didn't know or they weren't paying attention. I mean, they both worked very, very hard to put food on the table. That's all they were concerned about. It was tough back then, for us anyway. So it was, they never told me the importance of networking and the importance of teamwork, they didn't even know. How would they know that stuff? They wouldn't, they never learned that stuff in Italy during World War II. I mean,
are your parents like first generation over here from Italy?
I'm first generation in Canada. Yeah. So Italian was my first language. Yeah. I grew up in Canada. Yeah.
Nice. Well, that's kind of fun though.
Yeah.
Like your family came like straight over. That's super neat. So when you were a little older, like 2025, where was your head now? Where Augustino, like you're out of high school. You're probably not the fat kid anymore. Maybe still a nerd though. Where
Well,
are you at now? Like, where's your mindset in your early 20s?
well, I'll tell you, when I was about 19, I just turned 19. My mother had a serious accident, and so I was left, and my parents were just divorced just prior to that, like months prior to this accident, like 6 months prior. So when that accident happened, I had to raise my little sister who was 16, and I had the house payment. I had to take care of everything. My mother was in a hospital. She was comatose in the hospital for a while actually. So my at the
Wow.
time my mind was all about survival.
Yes.
It was all about just trying to keep my head above water and just keeping my little sister safe. That's basically it.
Aw. But that's so
So
honorable that you did that.
well, it is, but I mean, obviously, I don't want anything bad to happen to my parents. Who wants that? But you tend to grow up very, very quickly. So unlike other people or other
Yeah.
kids, like they were going out to Florida for spring break and partying and drinking and all that stuff, I was working my ass off to because I have a house payment now.
Yeah.
I got to put
No.
food on the table. I got to raise my sister. I got to do all these different things, and I was putting myself through school too. So it was a lot of hard work. It was a lot of hard work.
I bet it was.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
especially like to be thrown into it like that. And you're
yeah,
not a 19-year-old men or women wouldn't step up and take care of their younger siblings.
yeah. Well, but you
They
know what?
like
Those
shift
one,
them off with dad and just go do your own thing.
yeah. Well, and that's a whole other story with all that. My brother went to go live with my dad, but one thing though that my parents never told me growing up that I tell my kid all the time, I tell everybody for that matter, is the importance of mentorship, right? Having the right people around you to help guide you, especially as when I was a young man, 19, 20 years old, I'm just fumbling around, just trying to do my best with what little knowledge I had.
Yep.
Whereas if I would have had a mentor to say, hey, listen, instead of doing it this way, here's what you could be doing. Here's what you should be doing with your life or whatever the case may be. So I was working in like as a computer technician, right? Because I remember I was into computers and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Trying to do stuff like that. I was actually holding down two jobs, and morning and night. So after work, I would jump in my car, go to the pizza place, and work there. And I was doing that well into I'd say my early 20s actually. So had like two jobs.
Wow.
So I wasn't afraid to work hard. Two full-time jobs. These are both full-time jobs.
And
you
you're
know.
taking care of your sister and your mom. Is your mom okay?
Well, that's. I mean, she had permanent brain damage. She's still around right now. And but those effects they last forever.
Oh, they do.
So
Oh, I'm sorry you had to
yeah,
go through that.
yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
that's really, that is like sometimes you do. Life just throws you like some major curveballs once in a while,
Yeah,
doesn't it?
yeah. And my mother and I were very, very close. We were very close. So, but the thing is that I didn't have the right guidance. I didn't have the right mentorship, and I don't know that my parents would have been the right ones anyway, regardless of that. But the mentoring is super, super important,
Yeah.
and it doesn't matter what age you are. By the way, I mean it would have made more impact when I was 19, 20, my early 20s or whatever. But even now, even today, if someone's listening and they're 50, mentors, get a mentor.
Yep.
Get a mentor. Everyone should have a mentor, right? It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to always be older than you. It could be someone younger than you.
Yeah.
One of my great friends. He's my primary partner. He's 10 years younger than I am. He's my mentor. I listen. I watch everything he does. And I
Yep.
replicate. That's what you
Yep.
do.
I was like, I had an aunt like that, my Aunt Evelyn. And she just was that person that was like, hey, here's what you do through life. It's time to, when I was thinking about getting married and having kids, just always like that really solid person giving advice that, I would, because, I didn't listen to my parents. So
Yeah.
I would listen to her, but always just there to give solid advice and to be helpful when I was having tough situations or struggling or whatever. And I feel like every kid needs to have like a person,
Yeah.
somebody.
That's right.
That's one of the
That's
things
right.
that I do in my family. My husband has a lot of nieces and nephews, and I have a few too. And I always tell the kids, I'm like, listen, I am the one person that you can come to. You can tell me all the horrible things you're doing, the drugs, the sex, whatever you're doing, and I will help you and guide you, and I will not rat you out. I will not tell your parents. If you come to me for advice, I will help you. And I
Yeah.
have, even with my own kids, sometimes they're like, hey, can I talk to you? And then they'd tell me something, and the mom piece of me is like, and then the other piece, but now I said I'd be open, I would help. But I have had so many of the young kids come to me because they get in situations and they don't know what to do. And I promised all of them, your secrets will go to the grave with me, but you need help or need that, I'll be that person for you. I will not tell your parents. And with all my brothers and sisters and everybody, if they all knew half the stuff, the kids, I was like, oh my God, I'd kill my own children. But
Yeah.
I tried to be like that for the younger people in my family because I had a person like that that really helped me through a lot of dark times. So I do get that. And it doesn't always, like you said, it doesn't even have to always be somebody older, just somebody you can say, hey, listen, this is happening right now. Like, what do I do? How do I make this work?
Yeah. Well, you know what though, Dwan, I'll tell you. One of the things that that I also excluded out of my life, even when I was younger, was virtual mentors too. And by that, I mean books, learning. It's Sam Walton. Sam Walton has a book, Made in America, right?
Yeah.
Billionaire, multi-billionaire for that matter, writes this book that you can buy off Amazon for $10. And this would be a good thing to ask your audience in a questionnaire. How many people have actually listened or read that book, right? This is the words of wisdom from a billionaire that you can buy for $10 or $5,
Yep.
right? And no one listens to it. That's a mentor right there, right? That's a mentor, So there's a lot of lessons to be learned. I wasn't thinking in that way though. My whole realm of thinking from that point was still based on technology, working a 40-hour week, just getting by, that kind of thing. Like most Americans that are out there, they're just getting by,
Yeah.
that's what they were told, right? That's what they were told. It's a product of the industrial age, right? In the industrial age, you work your 40 hours, which all this, and guys, all this was just defined like within the last 150 years, right?
Yes,
the 40-hour work week, the 40-hour work week, the whole thing about rights when it comes to working somewhere, all these things. Before that, where this was a nation of entrepreneurs, which is mind blowing, right? Because now it's totally the opposite.
It is
right?
the opposite. Now, my family, I'm from Ohio, so, you're like that Midwestern, corn-fed, excuse me, my tea's giving me the hiccups. And I was raised always I heard, get out of high school, get married, have kids, and work in a factory.
Mm-hmm.
And put in your 40 years and retire. No place does someone say, go to college. No place does someone say anything. Get married, have kids, and work at a factory. So I got engaged right out of high school. I got a factory job. And like 3 weeks later, I thought, oh my God, why would my family want this for me? I had never been inside of a factory. I'm like, it's hot. It's June. There's no air conditioning. I'm standing on my all day, standing. And at 18, I'm just like, oh, my back. And I'm thinking, who would want this for me? Like, why would someone tell me my whole life, right, this is what I should do? So I dumped my boyfriend. I left my job. I moved to Florida by myself. I said, I'm going to start something else because this is not going to work for me. But it's the industrial, that's just what you're taught. And now when I hear people say that, it's like, but who are you going to work for 40 years? Like, there's no working for the man anymore.
Right.
Everyone comes and goes. Businesses come and go. There's no more of that. So I think if you're not an entrepreneur, I don't know. I'm like, who do you depend on to work for?
Well, and it's funny, Dwan, because I think that my generation, we were the ones that were transitioning between those long-term career, 40-year career, and where to now it's okay if you only go work at a company for 3 years because they fire you, right?
Exactly.
I was like, it was my generation. We're the first ones, because I remember being nervous about working somewhere in tech or whatever, and then only lasting a handful of years, because
Yeah.
I would be worried, oh my God, what are they going to think of my resume?
Yeah.
And I have a smile and I'm laughing because now I couldn't give a rat's ass about what anybody thinks about my resume, which is kind of funny. But I think it was my early 20s I decided to really focus back on school, and I thought that I was a smart kid, and I thought that I wanted to build a career in technology like I did when I was a kid. So I put myself through school. I started in Canada, went to college in Canada. Then my friend and I, my buddy and I, we moved over to the States, and not that we shouldn't say we moved. We started going to school in the States from Windsor, which is just a short bridge ride over.
Right.
And we did our undergrad in electrical engineering technology, and then I continued on to the 2 master's degrees. One I did an MBA, and I did another one in information systems. And so it's all centered around technology and finance and stuff like that. But for the life of me, Dwan, I couldn't hold down a job. Just couldn't do it.
That's because you were supposed to be an entrepreneur.
Because I was supposed to be an entrepreneur. That's right. I mean,
but seriously, 2 master's degrees. Good for you.
Yeah. And I paid for it all on my own. I mean, this is not like no government nonsense. No, I did it all on my own. And the way that I did it was, again, I was working my ass off to hold down as many jobs as I could.
Yeah.
I had a credit card. I would charge the whole thing up on the credit card, like the entire tuition, and then multiple credit cards actually. And then I would work the entire semester, pay them all to zero, and then do it all over again. That's how I put myself through school. That's how I did it.
You really worked your butt off and went through school. Well, see, you got 2 masters, so you're super smart. So you're able to do that.
Well, yeah, I don't know that I would have done it that way, but but I didn't have any other choice, right? My parents, again, they didn't have a lot of money, and they didn't plan to send any of us kids to school. So, and I knew that I had to do it because my mother always told me you have to go to school, right? Yep. So I did it. That's what I did. So, but even I eventually became a CIO, like a C-level IT executive, right? Started off in the lower ranks and as a director level, and eventually vice president, and eventually C-level. And I spent the bulk of my career, early career anyway, really working in technology management, enterprise IT, stuff like that.
Nice.
And so I learned a lot about how to deal with people, how to get deals done, how to negotiate good pricing, how to deal with the whole office politics. For many of the companies I've dealt with, I was very fortunate. I didn't have too many office politics, but at the same time, I was also very unfortunate in that I worked for a lot of crappy companies. Guys, there's a lot of crappy companies out there, and I think I found them all. I found a lot of crappy companies. Oh my God, the stories. That's a whole other show. I can tell you.
I know. We're going to have to do a show sometime about like all the crappy jobs that we've had. So when did you get bitten by the real estate bug that you're like, I'm going to do multifamilies? Like, how do you go from that to multifamilies? There's got to be a jump there.
There was. Because here's the thing. Okay. When I was still in my early 30s, I landed a job at an up-and-coming company in Virginia, and my friend who he ran operations. I was still a vice president level in technology. So there was a CIO above me, but he was on his way out. He was leaving. That's what he hired me to be his successor.
Okay.
But at the time, I was still like a VP level, and my friend, who I'm still friends with to this very day, he says, you ought to do real estate. This is back before 2008. This is going back to like 2006 or so, right? And I can get you connected with this broker, blah, 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 or a real estate agent rather. So I started doing single families. I started buying like single family homes, small multifamily, and it got.
Now, were you like an agent, or you started right out of the gate buying for yourself?
Right out of the gate, just buying for myself. I had no idea what I was doing. I took no courses. I took nothing. All my friend Bill told me was, here's this agent. for a call and start buying stuff. And that's what I did. So I worked at this company. The company was somewhat successful and I was doing a great job. They kept on giving me buckets of money. I'm like, okay, well, I have all this money. I got to do something with it. Right. And I wasn't thinking about 1031 exchanges. I wasn't thinking about, keeping money from the tax man, or I wasn't even thinking about stuff like that because I had no financial education whatsoever. I had zero financial education, like nothing. I knew nothing about it. Right. I wouldn't know the difference anyway. All I knew was what my friend told me to do, and I did it. Right. And I look back, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so stupid. Oh boy.
No, but you know what? I do the same thing. Someone said to me, oh, we buy houses, we fix them up when we sell them. And I was like, oh, decorating. I love to decorate. I'll
Decorating.
do that. Yeah. And then I buy this house thinking I'm going to decorate it. And then I have to actually rehab it. It's like, I have no skills. And it's so funny though, how I did the same thing, like no classes, no nothing. But I think sometimes entrepreneurs like that, when we start off really naive and thinking, hey, this is going to be great fun. Oh, woo. Sometimes that's our best thing, is the fact that we are naive about what we're doing.
Right.
Because I think sometimes if I had known really all there was about rehabbing and all the things that can go wrong, I don't know if I would have jumped right on it just thinking I was going to decorate houses.
Well, but here's one thing I learned leading up to 2008 was that I was buying up as many houses as I possibly could. I was putting under my own name. I didn't use an LLC or anything, and I was doing stuff like that, right? And then eventually, though, because I've always been very conservative with my numbers. I still am to this very day. It's an old habit that's never failed me. The way I put my deals together was when things are starting to heat up, and back in 2008, there's people that were buying these houses that were way overpaying for it. The payments wouldn't make any sense. And I'm like, who's buying these houses? The rents, the house payment was greater than the rent you can rent it for. I'm not buying it. So I stopped buying houses because I couldn't find anything. I was paying, and by the way, I was buying everything at retail, which was totally stupid. I was buying things at retail because, again, I had no idea what I was doing, right? And then the crash hit. At about the same time, the company that I was working for, this great company that I thought was great anyway, they screwed me, they stole my stock, and they kicked me to the curb after doing a bunch of great stuff for this company. I transformed the way they did business. Yeah, but whatever. Everything turned out for the best anyway. But when you're going through it, it's not so much fun. And then I basically went through what I call the 10 dark years. And at that point, I was just floating from job to job. I was trying to find any job I could possibly find. I had no purpose. I had no why. I was just like, hurry up, find a job. I'd be camped out in my room all day and all night, sending out resumes. I would send out, I swear to God, Dwan, I would send out at least 100 resumes a day.
Holy cow.
A day, every day, right? And I wouldn't surprise you, someone in this audience that's listening got one of my resumes. Okay, wouldn't surprise me. Right, that's how many resumes for months months
this is like
on end.
2008, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Yeah,
like a decade.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, not for the entire decade. Oh, there's more. Believe me. But the issue was that I had very low self-esteem of myself. I did not leverage the relationships that I should have leveraged when I was working for this air quote great company.
Yeah.
Because they had a lot of exposure. They were a Wall Street darling. They went public and all that stuff. I didn't leverage any of those relationships to help me get into the next job. I didn't do any of that because I figured, like the whole blue collar thing. If you do a good job and you're getting paid, why do you have to worry about anything else? Well, I did not manage my career properly. Right. That's why I didn't do that. And if I would have done that, things would have been very different for me even today. But it's a good thing it didn't happen that way. I mean, I went through a lot of suffering, I suppose, right? But that suffering turned into something better. But I ended up going from job to job to job. I just took any job that would pay me. I mean, it was that bad, right? I didn't manage my career properly. And I underestimated the importance of mindset. My mindset was broken. And nor did I even define what I wanted out of life to begin with. That's a big part of how you're going to live your life. And that's how I live my life today, but I wasn't doing it back then. So
I get that.
Yeah,
I get that.
but for 10 years, I went from job to job to job. I lived in all these different places, just working wherever I could find a job. I'd maybe last a year, maybe a year and a half before something happens, because I've worked for a lot of crappy companies. Remember, I said a lot of crappy companies.
Yeah.
I worked for a lot of crappy companies. The companies are very unstable. They look at my pedigree and they're like, oh, maybe this guy can help us, and they have either, well, that's a whole other story. They either had no money or they had no, like, whatever.
I'm gonna have to have you on for like a really long session, telling us all the things not to do.
Yeah. I mean,
Oh, honey, I've got a whole decade just like that.
Yeah. Well,
That's
I mean, but Dwan, it got so bad that I even had the IRS after me. That's how bad it got.
Wow.
Right? It was pretty bad. So, but then I finally got my feet back on, back on the ground. I met the CEO, and when I was living in New York at the time, I ended up in New York, right, New York City. I was living in New York City for a while, and he actually brought me on to his company to help fix his company. He believed in me, right? And I fixed the company. I did great things there, and their IT was a disaster. I was getting paid tons of money. I was doing great things, but here's the problem. I wanted to do real estate again. I knew I wanted to get back into the real estate game. I hadn't touched real estate in like 10 years at that point now, right? Because I was doing all that single family, the multifamily, the small multifamily stuff.
Yep.
And then I stopped because of 2008 and everything exploded. And and things got really, really from bad to worse for me personally. And so I said, okay, well, you know what? I'm gonna maybe I should consider real estate again. But here's the problem. I was working at this company in Indianapolis, and I was making, like I said, I was making very good money. I had the nice big office with the, overlooking a truck stop. Phenomenal. Go from New York City to that, right?
Oh my gosh.
But the issue though, Dwan, is that even though I was getting paid a lot of money, it's that money is almost like, it's like heroin entering your veins, right? And I never had heroin in my veins. I'm only giving that analogy through observation. But whenever someone in the movies, whatever, gets a big shot of drugs, they kind of like, they tone out, or they tune out, right? They tone down, right? It's kind of like that. Every 2 weeks, that giant paycheck comes in. You're like, oh, maybe I don't need to be doing real estate. You know what? I have enough money in the bank. The money just shows up. Why do I have to go work that hard? That kind of thing. That's what happened. That's what happened.
I get it.
And a lot of people get that way. They get lazy because there's no pressure on them.
Yeah.
Until the guy that hires me, he decides, like, he ended up getting screwed by this company, and he leaves. New guy comes in, hates me. All right. So now it wasn't about a month that I'm out in the job. I'm out in the streets now again. Like, I've been fired from I don't even know how many companies I've been fired from. I started counting. I think I've been fired from about 15 jobs, and I stopped counting because I couldn't keep track. I wish I were joking.
We have that in common.
Yeah, I wish I were joking. So I'm like, I was living in Indianapolis at the time, and I'm like, well, you know what? I'm going to do real estate. I'm going to go back to real estate, because here's the thing I realized is that despite all the problems that I had in my life,
yeah,
all the issues, all those 10 dark years of hell that I went through, I still had a small portfolio of single families left. And no matter what, they were still throwing off money. Always. They were always throwing off money. Right. And I'm like, all throughout all this hell that I went through, these properties still have money that come to me every month, no matter what I did. And I'm like, I should just go ahead and do that. I could just do it on my own. I don't have to worry about anything. Because here's the thing. At that point, I was in my mid 40s, and I'm like, how many more times am I going to turn over my life force, this life force that I have in my possession? How many more times can I turn this over to some stranger, and they're gonna take it from me, and then eventually, when they're done with me, dispose of me? How many more times do I have to put put in this person's hands the future of my family, my son, my everything, all my hopes and dreams in the hands of some stranger that doesn't care about me? How many more times can I possibly do this at 45, 46 years old, something like that? And I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. I will not. And it was that point. That was the point. That was the point when I realized I am not doing this anymore. I am not doing this. I'm done. I'm not doing this. That's what it took, is to make a decision that I'm not doing it. That I make it, and I'm going to go into real estate. And that's
So
what I
you've
did.
only just been in like this for a short time.
Well, I would say that when, in the new business that I built now, yes.
The new Augustino.
Yeah, because everything was broken. I had no perspective, right? So what I ended up doing was, first I went to Michigan. I started liquidating everything. So I went to Michigan, had houses out there, got rid of all that. Went to Virginia, had some houses out there, got rid of that. I still have one house there left, actually. It's funny because just before this meeting, I was messaging the lady that lives there now. She wants to buy it from me. I'm like, great, you know. But when I was in Virginia, trying to liquidate all these houses, I was trying to find a consulting gig. I still needed a consulting gig while I get this real estate business off the ground.
Right.
An attorney friend, when I was doing some networking back in Indianapolis, he does real estate, he's a real estate attorney, and I asked him, like, he happened to call me about some Bitcoin thing or whatever. I don't know what the hell it was. And I'm sitting on the phone. I look out my car window, and I notice this big, like, well, not really big, but 30 unit apartment building or something like that. And I said to him, I go, who owns those things? Like, who owns these buildings? He's like, what do you mean? And these buildings, who owns them? He goes, what do you mean? People own them. They syndicate it. I'm like, syndication? What's that? So he explained what syndication is. And for those people that aren't familiar, syndication is when you raise money from other folks. You basically raise the down payment for the property and all the repairs you want to do to the property and everything else like that. You use that as a down payment, and you buy a property with it, and then you share in the returns, right? You share the returns, your investors share the returns, and if you run the property the way it should be run, everybody's happy.
Right.
And I'm like, well, I can do that. I mean, I know how to raise money. I know how to talk to people. I know how to how to prepare materials because I have my corporate experience, right? You know what? That's what I'm going to do. So the question was, now, where am I going to do it? And I targeted Ohio. I targeted like the Metro Cleveland area. At the time, there was this city had still not fully recovered from the 2008 crash. Now we're talking like I don't know, 17, 18 now, 2017, 2018. Wasn't that long ago. We're talking like a handful of years ago, right? And I took on a consulting role with some crappy little company out here, while I got to work building this business. So I loaded up everything I owned in my car. I was living in hotels. Nothing. I had nothing. Right. And and previous to this, I had this giant house with Corvettes and Hummers and like granite countertops, cathedral ceiling, and all this stuff. I had it all. And now I'm living in hotels. That's how bad it got. All right, living in hotels, having the IRS chase you down. That was my life at one point.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, but one thing I started taking on was virtual mentors, right? And this is like reading like Robert Kiyosaki, reading guys like that to understand not only the business but also the mindset. Understand the mindset and the importance of visualization. And that is something that throughout my life, up until that point, I totally ignored it. And most people do. They totally ignore it. And when I sat down and started writing out my goals, and I sat down and really started focusing on the mindset, that's when things really, really started to change, right? So by moving out here, working at this company as a consultant, and started driving around, meeting brokers, starting from zero.
From zero.
Yeah,
just a few years ago.
Yeah, just a few years ago. Yeah. So now I'll save this part for in a few minutes here. I just thought about something which is hilarious. There's now what I did was I focused on the mindset, and by doing so, I started reading like a book a week. I started doing that. I started studying Stoic philosophy. I started really envisioning what my life needs to be and what I want to become.
Yeah.
And because without that, and I'm not saying like, you're just sitting there driving, blah, blah, blah. No. I'm saying you do this on purpose. This is for the audience as well. You sit down and you write it out. If there was no limits on money or anything else like that, no family obligations, whatever, what would your life look like? What do you want to see from that perspective?
Like a vision board.
It's exactly, which I have a vision board too. I look at it every single day, and I didn't have that. I never thought of it. So, but here's what I did. It's funny because when I was doing this consulting work, I didn't have a vision board at the time. What I did was I wrote out quarterly goals, and I printed off like 15 of these things, and I had them hanging up all over my apartment. I had
that's a good idea, though.
I had one in the bathroom, one on either side of the bathroom door. I had one in my closet, one in the living room. Like there's no way I'm missing this freaking sheet, right? I'm gonna see the sheet everywhere I go. It's 90-day goals, right? 90-day goals, and in 90 days, this is what I need to do. And it's funny because every once in a while, like I'll go. I kept it on my Google Drive, and it'll say my goal for this month is to get my first deal. It's going to be 50 units, and I just chuckle because I don't even look at 50 units anymore. I mean, to me, it's like I'm trying to get rid of those things at this point, which is hilarious because it wasn't long ago, right?
Well, that's good though, because you start growing, you do better, you do bigger, and your goals get bigger too.
Yeah, that's exactly it. But the main thing to harp on is the importance of the mindset, surrounding yourself with great people, and really being smart about what your life needs to look like, because that's where many people fall flat. They allow life to just scoop them up and take them from day to day.
Yes.
And the grains of sand in the hourglass continue to fall no matter what you're doing. And
they do.
I realized later in life, of course, what's gone on, like what I should have been doing. I should have been doing this when I was 30, but I was so headstrong in technology. And looking back now at the technology thing, I mean, I was a good CIO. I was good at running tech, but I mean, there's people way better than me. I should have been doing real estate the entire time is what I should have been doing,
But you know what? All of those things are what brought you to where you are. So now you're successful. You have multi-units. You have your podcast. You're doing syndication. Like if all of that hadn't happened, you might not even be where you are right now.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, at this point, we're going to be closing on another 300 units. I have another 360 units that hopefully will be right behind that one, which we're competing for right now. And then possibly another 300 units behind that one too, and another off-market type deal. So it's like these are all things that and then this is not even including the other 1,000 units that I've already purchased since I got here. Right?
Nice.
And then on top of that, as I mentioned at the top of the call, was we bought the Rockefeller Building in downtown Cleveland. It's a historical asset. When that deal is done, my partners and I we're going to put $125 million into that thing. And I'm pointing outside my window because I live in a high rise now, and I look at that building every single day.
So oh my God!
Right outside my window.
I own that building.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, but it was not long ago. It was not long ago when I was. We were living out of our car basically, and it took a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage.
It takes a lot of courage.
It takes a lot of vision, and
you have to have the mindset and you have to have the self-confidence to do it, because I feel like one of the biggest reasons people are, for me personally, I think that one of the biggest reasons people are not successful is their mindset's not right, and they overthink and they talk themselves out of it, or they have the people in their life that say, well, you can't do that, you can't do this, what makes you think you can do that? And they don't have somebody pushing and saying, but you can do that.
Well,
you can, but you have to believe you can as well.
Yeah, Dwan, I think it's also people get comfortable, right? And when I was working at that company in Indianapolis, I was comfortable, and I was making very good money. My credit was not so good because of all the stuff that it had impacted me in the past.
Right.
But I didn't care enough to fix it. Now all that stuff is cleared up. I hired attorneys, they took care of it, everything, because now it's important to me. It wasn't important to me. I wasn't tracking it, the yeah, it's kind of like, that is probably the worst place for you to be, is to be in a position of comfort. And that's it took me getting fired for the umpteenth time. I have no idea how many times I've been fired at that point. But it was that where I realized that, you know what, it's like I cannot live this way. I
No.
will not live this way. I want to have my house in Monaco. I do want to have I had my Corvette. My Corvette was nice. It'd be nice to have a nice fast car, that and a nice home and all that,
Oh,
stuff
sure.
again, right? But it's but it was comfort. Comfort is what kills. Comfort is what
Comfort
kills.
does kill you sometimes, because once you get really comfortable, you don't push anymore. And then if you get kicked out of that nest, you're sort of
Yeah,
lost. You're
that's
lost.
right. That's
I
right.
love
And
your
you leave your
story. I mean,
future.
you have such a great story. I love how and we're going to recap here before we get completely to the end. But I really love your whole story. I mean, you have like ups and downs and ups and downs, and now you're up, but you're there, and you're there on purpose. Now you're
Yeah,
purposefully
yeah.
right
Well,
there at the top, kicking butt. So let me ask you.
and I'll tell you what, though, too. Dwayne, I was going to say one last thing, is that what's funny is that I went to go look at a deal just the other day, and with this brokerage house I never really dealt with before. And I get out of the car. The guy knew who I was immediately. I didn't know who he was. He knew who I was. And he goes, "Oh no, I know all about you. We've been following you guys for a long time now. We know how many
Wow,
deals you
that's
guys have
nice.
done here in Cleveland, yada yada yada." So it's like, but my point was is that I literally got here with nothing. Like I didn't know a soul here. Like I didn't know anybody, right? I had no base, like no people, no nothing. And to go from that to this
But now,
is remarkable. That's why whenever people say, "Oh no, it can't be done," listen. If it depends how hard you want to work. If you
yes,
want to
it
work
does.
hard, you want to bust your ass, then you can do it.
You
If you're
can.
gonna have a hard time doing that, it's gonna be tough. You're gonna have a tough life. You have a tough
Yeah,
life.
Cleveland has my favorite amusement park, Cedar Point.
Yeah, yeah,
That Cedar Point is my aunt and uncle used to live in Avon, which you probably know
yeah,
Avon,
yeah,
Ohio, right
yeah,
outside Cleveland. And I used to go up there
yeah.
all the time and go to Cedar Point and ride those massive roller coasters.
Well, when you're coming into town in the next week or something, we should go. We'll go there.
Oh my God,
There we go.
yes, yes, because they're open. I love roller coasters. All my life, I love roller coasters. And I used to just be like, when my dad would let us go from Dayton, because I was raised in Dayton, let's go from Dayton to Cleveland, and we could go stay with Aunt Carrie and Uncle Herman, and guys would ride roller coasters all week. And I was like, oh, I have died and gone to heaven. But I did that all the way up until, a decade ago after they passed away. I would still go up there and visit them, and still, in my 50s, riding roller coasters, hands up in the air, screaming. So much fun. And you have the Rock and Roll
Yeah,
Hall of Fame. You have all kinds of great stuff up there.
there's great stuff here. Yeah, a lot of
There
good stuff
really
happening
is.
out here.
It's cold in the
Yeah,
winter, though. I'm just
it
saying.
is. It is. It is.
Ah,
That it
so tell
is.
me, what's your favorite food?
Wow, favorite food is I have to say it's pizza. Although I'm not eating any right now because I'm doing 75 days hard right now. Oh, it's tough.
I
So
know,
it's
I've been hearing
that's
everyone do that 75-day program. I've been thinking about that, but I'm like, ooh, I don't know.
yeah.
I'm debating. I've got a friend on it right now, and I'm like, man, because I really need to like get my health in a little bit better shape, but
Yeah,
I've been thinking about doing that.
it's good. It's good for discipline. It sort of like recenters you, I'd say.
Yeah.
Except I changed it up a little bit. In the official 75 days hard, you're supposed to do one workout indoors, one workout outdoors, stuff like that. Well, I'm doing CrossFit twice a day,
Wow.
right? Which is hard. CrossFit is hard, right? Number one is hard. Doing it twice in a single day is very hard.
Yeah, it
so,
is.
so that's
Yeah, but
hard. And
good for
then
you.
yeah, and then like 1,300 calories, 13 to 1,500 calories, somewhere in that range. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I'm doing like that. And there's also you have the reading regime. You have to do the cold showers, the weighing yourself, the photos. You have to take photos of yourself every single day.
Yeah. I've got a
The whole
friend that's in. I don't know how many days in yet, but he looks amazing.
yeah.
And he's lost weight and just he looks so good. So, what's your favorite band of all time?
Oh wow, favorite band of all time. Huh. I would have to say, I think it's probably Cascade, and that's like it's like house music, right? And it's really one guy, and he's a Mormon, and he's really
Nice.
good.
Now, I
Yeah,
have to
yeah,
tell you, I am not familiar with Cascade, and very rarely, does someone name a band that I'm not familiar with. So when I'm not, I go listen to them. So
I'll
I
send
will
I'll
listen to
send you
Cascade now and add
I'll send
that
you some
to.
links.
Yeah. I no, I don't think I've heard of them before, and
Yeah,
hardly ever. I mean, I love music from all genres, from decades, and all of it. So it's very rarely someone catches me off with one I've not heard before. But I'm excited to check that out now. And
yeah. Also,
where
you're
is
welcome.
where's your favorite place that when you're at this place, everything is just right with the world? Where's your favorite place?
Huh. I wouldn't say it's just one place, but it's one type of place where it's believe it or not, it's a cafe, right? A cafe with my computer, and it just depends on what I'm doing,
Yeah.
right? So when I'm at a cafe with my computer, and this started when I was, because I've been a lifelong entrepreneur, I used to take my computer down to the cafe and just turn it on, put my headphones on, and just work. I could
Yeah.
certainly do it at home, but I would just prefer to do it there with a coffee and nobody bothering me.
Exactly.
Now, but there is one other place aside from that, and that is in December of every year. I try to find the wealthiest place I can find wherever I'm at. Because now I travel, stuff like that, right? So, like last year I was in Colombia, or the year prior I should say, for like six weeks, right? To avoid the cold winters that you pointed out earlier. So,
Cleveland's
uh,
brutal, man.
yeah, it is. But I'll tell you what, though, when I was here, I'd go to the Ritz Carlton and just hang out in the lobby, get out my notebook and pen, and just start writing because it puts you in a very different mindset. You look around, you see all this wealth, you see people coming in and out. Someone pulls up in a Bentley, they get out of their Bentley, they go in, they check into the hotel, whatever. You're surrounded by this, and puts you in a very different state of mind.
Yeah.
You know. So it's good to be surrounded by that type of scenario when you're
Yeah.
working on establishing your goals, right?
I love that. That
Yeah.
is such a great thing. So let me see. We're going to summarize and see. I took a lot of notes. There's a lot of notes here. So we're going to summarize and see if we were able to get inside your mind just a little bit.
Yeah.
So Augustino Pentis, Bulletproof Cash Flow Podcast. They find you at rdyne.com. You do multifamily. You are 50 and fine. Your family is from Italy. When you were young, you were in Canada and you were computers and you were coding and you were a nerd. And then when you were a little bit, not very old, only 19, your mom was in a really wicked accident and you just stepped up to the plate and you took care of your little sister, which is really an honorable thing to do. And at some point, you said you were a big fat kid, but clearly that is not happening right now. And you were in computer tech. You have 2 master's degrees. I like the fact you read the book by Sam Walton. I read a lot of books like that myself as well. And you said then in 2008, you were basically working for a really good company, kind of kicked to the curb. Took about 10 years. You had a little bit of a dark spell there for a minute. And earlier in your 30s, a friend had told you to get into real estate. You stopped in 2008, had your little bit of a black hole, but that's okay because we all bounce out of those black holes. And your mindset was broken. Went to New York, started working on your mindset, and sort of got it fixed and got going along on the right thing, started building vision boards, started working multi-units, doing syndication, bought the Rockefeller building, which is super cool that you have that building in Cleveland. And you're like pizza, the band Cascade, cafes, fancy places. You think mindset is like the most important thing of all the things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is
It is the
that a
only
little
thing.
bit of inside the mind of you today?
Yeah. To emphasize it though, Dwan, the mindset is everything. It is everything. It was so underestimated. The people that you surround yourself with, even the ones that seem innocuous, the garbage that's on Facebook and social media and all that stuff, right? The friends that you're with, all those people have a small influence. As long as it enters your eyes, enters your ears, wherever, any of your senses, even your sense of touch, right? It will all have an influence on your brain and then determine what your future is going to look like. And what's funny is that, if you would have told me, if I would have heard this message myself like 8-9 years ago, I would have said they're full of crap. What the hell are you talking about? It sounds like a bunch of foo-foo nonsense. And having lived it now, I've lived it personally. It is 100% true. The people you surround yourself with, it matters. And
it does matter.
It's like I have friends from I call it my old life. I mean, I still talk to them from time to time.
Sure.
But it's like whenever they'll call me they'll call me and they'll say, "Hey, what are you up to?" It's like, "Oh, I just signed on a $70 million line of credit or a $70 million construction loan just the other day, and now we're working on a $50 million.
Well, they can't even relate.
Yeah, it's like they can't even get it. It's like, and this is true, by the way. Like this is I'm not lying. I literally signed the construction loan document for Rockefeller, $70 million. Signed it. We sent in the $150,000 startup fee, so they can perform their due diligence and everything else like that. I mean, this is all real stuff I'm doing, right? This is not fake. And it's
when I come up there, I want you to show me your building.
Absolutely. But the point is that like if you would have told me that I'd be doing this even 5 years ago, I would have said, no freaking way, that's not going to happen. No, and here we are. Here we're doing it.
That's because your mindset changed.
The mindset changed 100%.
And so speaking of mindset, I had talked to you earlier on the show. At the very end of the show, I have something I call the 5 equities of life.
Yeah.
And so they are spiritual, physical, financial, mental, and family. And if you kind of like take a piece of pie and you put all those things in there, that's sort of what makes us who we are. Yes. And I know from my own personal experience that when you're building your career, it's really easy to get out of balance, which is kind of what that 75-day thing that you're doing is to get rebalanced and kind of get recentered. So I always like to have our guests honor us and give us our life equity of the week and give us an assignment. And then my listeners know that whatever equity and whatever assignment, I ask everyone just to do it for a week. And if you like it, keep it. And if you don't, that's okay. But at least you did it. And it adds value to people's lives. So what is our life equity this week?
Okay, this is going to be, hopefully this won't be tough for people out there because there's going to be a lot of information here. It's broken up into 2 parts, okay? Part 1. As I mentioned before, if you had no limits, if there's no limits on money, no limits on family obligations, whatever you had, what would your life look like, right? And start writing it out, write out in this just in point form, what your future would look like, right? I live in Miami in a high rise. I have a nice car. I drive in like maybe just 5 or 6 points, okay? Then you write down your life as like in 12 months from now. Okay, so this is like your overarching goal over here, like what you want your life to look like, and then your next right below it. And I'll give you an example. So for the second part here, you would write down like I own 12,000 units, producing 12% cash on cash return annually. I have a home in Medellin, Colombia, and I have a home on the coast as well. And I have my son is friends with some of the most famous people in the world. I have a great relationship with my wife. I have so write down in again, you're writing it in current tense, like this has already happened.
Yeah,
right? Current, right? And you're writing this out. You have to write out 21 points, 21 of them. There's no limits. There's no caps on this thing. So the first one's 5. The next one's 21. Okay. And these are things that you want to accomplish in some amount of time, maybe 12 to 18 months, right? 12 to 18 months. If this is going to be your life, maybe getting a house in Colombia might be out of reach for some people right now, right? But I guess write it out as if this is really going to happen. Like it's already happened. It's already happened. It's already happened. Okay, this is very, very important because what we're trying to do is we're trying to turn on your reticular activating system. Okay, have you heard of this, Dwan?
A little bit, yes.
Okay, so then that if there's a car that you want, so I pre-ordered the Cybertruck. Okay, so now whenever I'm driving down the street, I see a Tesla everywhere. I see them all over the place. Before I would never notice it, but now I see them everywhere. Why? Because my reticular activating system, I already took action. I ordered the car, and now I see them everywhere. It's kind of like the same thing. When you start defining what your affirmations are, that's what that second part is. These are your affirmations. When you start defining what the affirmations are, the opportunities start appearing. They come into your universe. You're pulling them into your universe is what you're doing, right?
I'm a big believer in all that. I do all that all the time. So
what you have to do is write this out morning, noon, and night. You have to write out at least 3 times a day, number 1. And number 2, you have to write it out whenever you feel like, things aren't going your way. I mean, there's days that they're really, really crappy for me. When that kind of stuff happens, I sit down, I get out my pen, and I start writing. Because it reminds me as to what I need to be doing. What are my goals? Remind me, why am I putting myself through all this hell? Oh yeah, this is why right here.
That's right.
This is why.
So we'll put this under the category of mental.
Yes. And then
these are mental exercises.
Yes, and then there's part 2. Now part 2 is interesting, okay? Because I did this. Everything I'm telling you guys, I did this myself. Okay, you have to reach out to people on LinkedIn. All right, you have to reach out to people on LinkedIn, and these are people that can possibly change your life. And you have to try to get a coffee or a drink with them, and get a meeting with them.
Okay,
that's what you're trying to do. This is hard. This is very, very tough. But it's doable, okay? That attorney I mentioned earlier?
Yes.
I did it this way. This is how I met this guy. Otherwise, I would never have met him, and my life would have been completely different, right? So what I did was, and this is the assignment, was that I knew I wanted to get back into real estate. Remember I said before, right? So what I did was I went to LinkedIn. I started looking up everybody that was local that did real estate, okay? Right. And started friending them and ask them, hey, you know what? I was a former real estate entrepreneur. Do you mind if I buy you a coffee and just pick your brain for 20 minutes or something like that? Or it was a little more, I guess, more information around that. But you get my drift. Write a nice email to get their attention. You just got to remember these people like me. I get spammed all the time on LinkedIn. So you have to craft your message in a way that's going to get a response, okay? And I'll tell you what, Dwan, I did this, and I think I might redo this again, because all those people that I met, I'm still friends with this very day, and those are the people that helped me get to this level. Those are the people. That is a great
task for everyone to do.
Right.
That's a great task.
You have to try to hit 2 a day. So that means you're probably going to message. You might have to message 15 people just to get 2 responses.
Right.
You're
going to keep my people really busy this week because they have to do the thing with no limits, what they want their life to look like. They have to have their 12 months, what they want, 21 points. And they have to reach out on LinkedIn and get 2 people that they can reach out to and they can meet with.
Yeah, because
they're going to be, all right, you wonderful people, y'all are going to be super busy this week. I can put you to work.
But here's the upside, guys. Here's the upside. Okay, if you execute this properly, if you first define what you want your life to look like, the people you're going to be reaching out to, I'm not going to say they're going to help you do it or anything else like that. I'm not saying that at all, but they're at least in the purview of like, they have some sort of exposure or some sort of means to get there, right? It's like, so it's like clearly if I'm looking to do stuff in real estate, I'm not going to talk to a guy that's in advertising. Why would I do that? You know, and nothing against the advertisers, but it's not in their wheelhouse, right? I knew that at the time I wanted to rebuild my real estate business, and I started reaching out to all these real estate guys, and that's what I did.
And it sounds like it worked out.
It worked out, and that's what changed my life, you know. So I'm telling you guys all this because it does work. It just sucks doing it, because you're gonna have to get their attention and create value. This is going to be the hard part, creating value in a non-salesy way. Because here's the thing, I'll get salespeople that message me all the time.
All the time.
Oh, it's terrible, and they think that I'm going to read it and I'm going to thank them for it. I'm no interest in reading your 11-page propaganda. I'm not doing this.
I know.
That's ridiculous,
I get all the time. It's like,
right, you know, but it's like, if you are an honest to goodness person that's genuinely interested in learning more about what they did, you make it about them. It's not about you. It's always about them.
It's about them.
Tell me about me. I want to know more about me.
Yeah.
You know, and that's how you get an audience with some of these folks.
That is how you do it.
Yeah.
Well, listen, honey, you have been so honest and so open, and I appreciate your heart so much. I mean, you really shared all the highs and the lows and everything, and a lot of people don't share so openly like that, and I just honor you for that, and I appreciate you for that.
Thank you.
Because things that you share, those are the same struggles that other people have, but people think they're the only one.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I think it really helps people to be like, hey, okay, well, this guy's really successful, but he went through a decade. So the fact that I've been a year in trouble, not that bad, you know. Like, people need to know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I think
it's just, you got to build your own tunnel.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, I guess you also don't have to waste a whole decade figuring it out either. I did, because I didn't have the right guidance.
No, I've got a specific decade, and the way I explained to people, I said, well, it's like, in this decade, it's like 2 bookends, and everything in the middle was just a bunch of gray matter.
Yeah.
Like, there was no, you know what I mean? There was no actual books between the bookends. It was just a bunch of gray matter. And it was a whole decade, and it was just gray matter. Like, that's what it was. It was this to this, and nothing really in between, but gray matter. And so that, right? Do you feel like that? That's how I describe my one of my decades. It's like, it was just, I don't even know what was going on. It was just gray matter. Yeah.
That's the way I describe it. Yeah.
I get that.
Other choice words for that, but yeah, we'll call it gray matter. That's fine.
You can say it. All right, so guys, if you loved listening to Augustino, which I loved this time together, make sure you follow his podcast, Bulletproof Cash Flow Podcast, and rdyne.com. Also, listen to his show and listen to what he's doing. Give him some 5-star reviews. If you had fun today, if you learned anything, if you laughed, if you got motivated by anything, give me a 5-star review and write something really amazing over there. And always, you can go to dewonderful.com and opt in and get a bunch of free stuff. So, last parting words of wisdom.
No matter how dark it gets, you have to take action. No matter what, don't let life beat you down and do nothing about it. Take action, even if you're taking one step towards the light at the end of that tunnel we talked about a second ago.
Nice.
Always take action. Don't wait. We're running out of time. Every single one of us is running out of time, and there's no second chance. So do all you can while you still can. I
love it. All right, everybody, remember, the truth is in the red letters, and we'll be back next week. Same bad time, same bad channel. So ciao, everybody. And Augustino, thank you so much for such a great interview today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for dropping by to the most wonderful real estate podcast ever, making real estate investment wonderful each and every time. And for more information on how to make your real estate dreams a reality, keep an eye on dwonderful.com and be sure to become a member.